5 years since her husband's death. "Just one?" she added, her lips now inclining toward mine. I looked at her smiling face and her black hair, disheveled by our earlier desire. How could I refuse her? I held her cheeks with the tips of my fingers and came closer, approaching her face slowly, anticipation being everything. I brushed her lips gently with mine and then tickled the corner of her mouth with the tip of my tongue. I knew not to smother her with kisses, so she would have to defend herself from my assault. I sipped the moist nectar of her mouth as she opened her petals to me. Our mouths fused together, her thirst palpable and her breath short. With our tongues and lips we drank from each other a cordial as sweet as honey. When I pulled back at long last, she hovered in midair, her eyes still closed, but her thirst quenched. I stroked her soft cheek with my forefinger. "I am sorry that I cannot give you more than an evening's entertainment," I said, "but that is all that I can give any woman." "Don Juan, you gave me more than my husband ever did. I had heard that in your eyes a woman sees her true beauty for the first time." She swallowed. "It was not a lie." I smiled and bowed my head, knowing that each woman's soul is a singular treasure. It was while growing up as an orphan in a convent that I first discovered these riches that few men have the privilege to behold. It was in the words, as much as the kisses from Hermana Teresa's mouth, that I learned to hear the quiet whispers of a woman's joys, fears, and longings. The clang of the local church bells was like a rod snapping against my skin. My coachman Cristobal knocked on the door impatiently. I knew my opportunity to honor the king and win his protection was quickly slipping through my fingers. "I am sorry to have to leave so abruptly," I said, as I placed my plumed black hat on my head. "Where I go is not nearly as enjoyable as where I have been." Elvira lay back in her bed with a confirming smile. I grabbed my cape and sword before darting out of her house. Cristobal was a head taller than I, but thinner, and his limbs were askew like those of a scarecrow. He crossed himself nervously, as he always did when he saw me after one of my seductions. "Another widow, my lord?" he said with a wince. "I suppose you believe the priests that a widow should live like a nun until she joins her husband in heaven. Let me tell you a secret, Cristobal. A woman's desire does not die before her last breath." He blushed and said, "The audience, my lord." "What are we waiting for?" I said with a smile and stepped into the carriage. "Quickly now!" Cristobal urged my mare Bonita, no doubt worried for my life, but not just my life. A dead man has no need for a coachman. Bonita knew our urgency just from the force of Cristobal's rarely raised voice and galloped through the narrow streets of Lebrija, the wheels of the black carriage scraping against the whitewashed walls. Unlike other coach drivers, Cristobal never used a whip, and he had a way of whispering into a horse's ear that made her do whatever he wanted. While he had this skill with horses, he was terrified of women. He had always had this fear, ever since I first found him in the Arenal when he was a boy of 12. He had run away from his family and was looking for work, and I was looking for a coachman but could not afford a full-grown one. I was no more than 22 at the time, and I became something of an older brother to him as we grew into manhood together. The carriage sped along the rough dirt road back to Sevilla, the wheels spinning dust in every direction. After less than 2 hours of hard riding, I could see through the carriage window the beautiful walls of Sevilla, burned pink and red by the light of the summer sunset. From within the city, the Giralda erupted to the heavens. At the crown of the tower stood a bronze woman, our city's symbol of faith, a cross in one hand and a palm frond in the other. Next to the bell tower, the round moon, one day past full, already rested on the cathedral, like a satisfied woman reclining in her heavenly bed. Black smoke suddenly eclipsed the moon as we approached a massive crowd gathered on the Prado de San Sebastián, just outside the city walls. The charred scent of burning flesh offended my nose and turned my stomach. I looked around nervously, but there was no other road to take, and Cristobal knew it was too late to turn back. Bonita was forced